Hello, and welcome to the Green Grassroots of Football with me, Andy Glover.
Me, Mark Winter.
And I would just like to thank our sponsor, Rachel's Bookkeeping, for all of your bookkeeping needs. So as usual tonight, we'll be recording 2 episodes. The first will be taking a look at facilities, surfaces, that sort of thing, before moving on to brand and identity, which will be out in 2 weeks' time. So before we head into the pod, my usual quote. We can only control what we do on the pitch and what we do on the training ground. Jack Butland. Not a bad goalkeeper. Future England goalkeeper at one stage, if I remember rightly.
He was a future England. Didn't fulfill his potential.
So basically, I've just gone through a couple of surfaces, facilities, pitches, whatever you want to call it, and I think Mark and I just discussed the various merits and drawbacks and what they are, especially in the current situation we're in, where down here pitches are on and pitches are off because of the flooding. So we'll start with AstroTurf. So when we go back 10 years, and if you wanted to train in the winter, the only real option was Wellsway. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think they call it 2G. Some call it 2G, but it's not. It's AstroTurf. And AstroTurf is essentially a hockey. Wellsway certainly is. It's actually set up for hockey. And it's a rubbery thing. It's got sand in it, it's rubber. So according to Sport England's facility guide, cost guide, the development of an artificial grass pitch for hockey measuring 100 metres by 60 or 63 typically ranges between 650,000 to 900,000, depending on the type of finishing surface you choose. For example, like a 23mm sandfield pitch would cost less than an 18mm sand dress pitch. The hockey pitch estimate includes artificial pitch itself, fencing, floodlighting, and these costs cover the complete construction and development of the facilities, including works for car parks and roads, paths, that sort of stuff. Additionally, the estimate encompasses fees related to project management, site investment, planning, associated expenses, so all that sort of stuff. So anywhere between 850. Did I say 8? Sorry, 860 and 915,000, but close to $1 million for AstroTurf. So that's an AstroTurf pitch if you want to put one up. Now, like I say, it's actually designed for hockey, but we go up there.
Multi-sport.
Yeah, it is. It's multi-sport, and we go up there. We went up there. I remember once last winter, and it's designed for 4 teams, but there's such a big area. I think there were 6 teams up there training. Yeah. So I've got this next thing I've got down here is pros and cons. So what do you think?
Well, it says what it does on the tin. It's handy when it's flooded and stuff. It's not great for football, I don't personally think, and there's potential for more injuries. There's not a lot of difference, I wouldn't say, between that and almost hard courts. It does have a little bit more give, and it is a little bit more safety thing, but I think
things like the banks and the run of the ball. This is the thing I can remember doing training. We'll work on passing, and if there's no wind, you can do a strong pass or strongish pass from one end of the pitch, and it will just roll through the whole length, which is just not realistic to a game, is it?
Not on a grass pitch. And again, it's one of these things. It's said it's unrealistic to have, because obviously for league games, cup games, they're not sanctions. You can't play on
AstroTurf.
So again, it's one of these things. I think within today's world, we've got futsal and stuff again on the wooden floors and stuff. For working on skills and working on it's better than nothing.
Yeah, if you can't get anywhere and you need training, it's a good place to train. You can slide tackle, but I wouldn't advise it because
it's not for tackling.
The rubber burns on the leg unless you're wearing tracksuit bottoms.
I wouldn't be keen on I feel sorry for the goalkeepers and stuff on it, diving and stuff.
We've done that sort of training. I wouldn't put it in the same bracket as a hard court. I can remember our goalkeeper Alfie going up. They did lots of diving around on it. I wouldn't put it in that bracket. The proper hard concrete court, I wouldn't put it in that bracket. But it's not the same as grass or anything. No. But if that's all you've got available,
And
it's a decent alternative.
I mean, the way I look at it now with, say, Wales Way and that sort of facility, if, say, we couldn't train for a week, I wouldn't go up there. If we've not been able to train for 2 or 3 weeks, I'd probably book a session if that's all that was available.
Yeah. I mean, they say it's an all-weather pitch, but I think even we had it where we had course. Yeah, it's frozen.
It's icy. It's
frozen.
Frozen, and also, again, it's better than nothing.
It is, yes. I think it's better than the hard courts.
Yeah.
But if you can get a 3G or a 4G or grass, those are the alternatives that you want to go for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's better. I mean, like I said, yeah. And it is, ultimately, like I said, it is actually designed for hockey. That is the point.
It's a multi-sport. It's had hockey. Maybe even do you can cricket, all sorts on.
But it's not actually a sanction for football.
No.
Much as you can do training and everything else. And I think my girls, we actually did have a friendly game up there. Yeah. You can put cones out and you can play the games.
Yeah.
But it's not officially a sanction.
No, and it said that Wales Way is set up as an 11v11 pitch. So I'm sure they've had adult games on there, but it just wouldn't be official league games on there.
Yeah. Okay. So, looking at 3G then. According to Sport England's facility cost guide, a 3G football pitch of 105 metres by 70 will cost you anything between just over $1 million to 1.13 million, depending on the thickness of the AstroTurf, between 40 and 65 mil, and your venue requires. And again, this price includes the 3G pitch, fencing, floodlighting. What do we think about 3G?
3G pitch. Again, it's an upgrade from the AstroTurf. Again, it's serves a purpose, and as time goes on, more and more are needed, obviously, for grassroots clubs.
Well, here's the thing, because we'll go on to 4G in a minute, but the 3G pitch has been specifically designed for football. People talk about 4G, and we'll come on to 4G. Oh yeah, they got 4G rather than 3G. 4G is not better. 3G has been specifically designed for football. It has a long piled turf that gives a realistic grass feel and be able to withstand heavy use. And when using the pitch, players must use boots that have got studs, and this stops the fibres of them compress for damaging the surface and stuff. But it's actually for football. That's the point of the 3G surface.
Yeah,
it's 3D pitches have been recognised by the accredited governing body, and they're actually endorsed by sports. That the 4G isn't, the Astro isn't. 3G. When you talk about we want to play a pitch on an artificial surface, you look for 3G. You don't go and play on 4G. No. People are saying, "Oh yeah, they got 4G. 4G is better." It's not. You want to play a match, you need to find a 3G surface. You need to wear studs. It's specifically designed for football, and I think people have kind of lost. I think people possibly, I think, the same along the lines as telephone signals. 3G, 4G, 5G must be getting better and better. It's not with football. 3G is actually the one you want. 4G is a different footwear, and so it's not designed for football. So have you? I don't know. We must have played on 3G, but we've just been told it's an artificial surface at times. Yeah. And you get a call saying, sometimes you get a call saying wear soft, and sometimes you get a call saying wear studs. And to be honest, until I kind of investigated for this pod, I wasn't really aware of the difference. But I think we have played on 3G surfaces.
We must have played on 3G. I said I don't. I always think the 3G, 4G goes over my head. To be honest, if I saw a 3G pitch and a 4G pitch, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
They don't look much different. No, exactly. That's the thing. But in terms of being able to play, so the actual idea behind them, though.
Again, they're perfect. Again, the way climate is at the moment, with more rain rather than coldness, there are more and more games called up. Obviously, down here at Summerdale, we get flooded a lot, and a few games are off, and games are off again this week. But it is the same virtually everywhere. I mean, we're not the only ones, and the average and stuff is we're probably about average, I would have thought, even with all the flooding we get here, because a lot of these places is just getting wetter and wetter. So it does give the options for 3G, for 4G, whatever it is, G, that teams can play.
And it's not just about playing in the winter as well. my grandson plays up in sort of in the Midlands at sort of step 4, step 5, step 6, and there's a number of teams there whose home pitch is 3G.
Yeah.
It's not grass at all. So the idea is they can play year round.
Yeah, I mean, again, with say those teams in, I think you'll find more and more certainly tiers below, say the Premier, just the national. It's a good money
outside
if
of
they
the
get
National
it
League,
in,
isn't it?
If they can get those sort of facilities in, then they can then on a Tuesday night rent it out to X amount of teams. It means the club is being used probably 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So they're going to benefit from.
You're not worried about being cut up in the winter.
Yeah. So it's something that they once it's down, it's looked after, and then they're guaranteed that income on a regular basis. Whereas potentially they could go 2 or 3 months and not get it, and then you've got to cram all your season in 4 to 5 weeks. So that's more injuries to players, less income for the club on an annual basis when you've still got to pay your staff and everything. So you're almost at the sort of the top end of the game from Premier League down to, like we said, National League North, National League South. We'll probably need grass pitches is the general rule, and then clubs from the next stage down to almost anything that's semi-professional to all the way down to the bottom. Even I said even like up to Keynsham Town. The 3G, 4G is probably the choice because for smaller clubs it's the revenue that they can get back. And then when you get down to say our level, the proper grassroots football, economically to get it is hard going.
$1 million.
Yeah, so unless you get FA funding and stuff.
FA lottery, which you've discussed in the previous pod, as you know.
It's an unrealistic challenge. Every club we would love it here.
But
sure.
here, that's to say, I'll come on to that question. It's moving away slightly from the surface idea, but here's a question for you. Bearing in mind that a lot of your opposition play on grass.
Yeah.
So your away games are going to be on grassy pitches, possibly bobbly, possibly long, uncut.
Yeah.
Would you like to have your home surface a 3G pitch? So I'm going to say that. So I'll give you my idea, my view first. You're always trading on that perfect surface, and the home game's that perfect surface. Yeah. But then you're going to go away, and your players are going to go, "What on earth is this?" And they're going to find themselves not used to it. So
the flip side of that is obviously when they come to you, if you've generated a good passing team, a good style of football, even on the best 3G, 4G, it still runs better than it does on grass. The weight of your passes, so you would be beneficial for obviously your home games. Your away games would be tougher. But again, to be fair, here when it's not flooded, our pitches I think are generally one of the best in the area. And when we go and play on a council pitch somewhere, we still have that same sort of issue. Yeah. We played at my team played at a pitch. It was an alright pitch, but it wasn't slopey. It was up and down on the pitch. It was bizarre.
Well, we've got our own example. Our previous team, we've not long finished. Was it the under 14 cup run where we knocked Keynsham out? We had to play it at Manor Road, and they just couldn't handle. Manor Road, for those who don't know, is a council pitch, and it's a real bobbly one, and that's the pitch we were on at the time. And we beat them, and they just couldn't handle the really poor pitch, whereas we had gotten used to it at the time.
Yeah.
And it was just that was just something they just really weren't able to cope with.
Yeah, so it swings and roundabouts with it. I wouldn't have any issues, and again, I think
you wouldn't, but like I said, the issue is when you go, your team whereas if you trade and play on grass, and you've got a good team, then majority of games home and away, you're not going to struggle.
I would think again, whereas if say for argument's sake we had everybody thinks it's the solution. If we were lucky enough to have a 3G pitch, if say pitch 1 was 3G, and we could play every week. Well, we've got 8 to 10 teams that play 11v11 on a Sunday. But only 2 could play on a Sunday. And because obviously Red Falcons are here as well, so they'd want one. So there'd still be 6 teams who'd need a grass pitch. So it wouldn't solve all the problems.
No, absolutely.
And that's what. So again, for us for grassroots and stuff, you'd probably have half. Well, you'd be lucky if you got half your games would be on the 3G, and you'd have to be on the other grass pitches any case.
So you'd be training on a perfect flat pitch,
but you could be on
and
a
then
grass.
go off and play on a pitch you're not used to.
Yeah.
So it'd almost be detrimental in ways.
It could be in some ways.
You train for the winter at least.
Yeah.
On a nice surface, not have to go indoors or higher.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it makes it unrealistic. I mean,
whereas for those who aren't aware, we have invested in portable lights, and our last team, as we know, we train right through every winter under those lights, and we're able to train on grass. And I think that must have been beneficial.
And this year, my team, one week on the hard courts, and I cancelled it tonight, and that we were due on the hard courts, but we
because the weather's been horrendous. That's a reason.
But we've trained on the grass with it, so we do that, and again, you have the outlay for the lights and what have you, but then it hasn't cost us. I haven't paid a penny out for going anywhere else this winter.
I mean, those lights were bought 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
So we haven't paid out since then, and they've made a massive use to everyone. And you train on the surface you play on year round if you use them. So there's benefits to doing that.
Yeah.
So would you use a 3? So would you go back to the original question? Would you train on a 3G year round if you could, or would you stick to grass?
I would. Well, I could go on again. Grass would be the first choice. I wouldn't make a big deal of it, but I'd use the 3G if it was there.
Okay.
I'd have to try to get a mixture in.
Yeah.
I mean, because there are certain things you can do on 3G. There are certain ball skills you can do, routines. You can practice set pieces. And stuff like that.
That's the thing with the 3G. What we're not really discussing here comes the floodlights.
Yeah.
That, as in the full size pitch floodlights, that allows you to say, actually, 11 aside, I want to work on corners. That you wouldn't normally be able to work on, even if we had our little lights out. We have been able to set them up, but not half size pitch. Full size phase of play through the winter,
and the players obviously on an 11-side pitch where you're set up on a proper corner thing. You're not having to make do or guessing the yardage and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, our lights. If I'm rightly, we were able to use the lights down there to create the corner environment. Yeah. But you couldn't set up a half-size pitch and work on phases of play.
No.
But with that 3G pitch, it's not necessarily the surface. It's the size and the floodlight that it comes with it.
Yeah, and
that's the benefit as well.
Probably are the main benefit is that you can have a proper training session on it. Yeah. And again, if you got it for your club and stuff, you can hire it out. There are ways you can.
There's marketing revenue as well, isn't there?
Yeah,
there's revenue streams that come with it. Okay. Well, we'll talk. I mean, we have touched on 4G. Most clubs, leagues, private facilities and local associations fit a 4G because they're all-weather qualities. The latest versions are made with several porous layers that allow water to drain away. This means that matches can take place in all weathers and postponements are kept to a minimum. And the argument about artificial pitch gentler on players' joints, muscles, etc. It's because they've got sort of cushioning effect. Yeah. But obviously we've discussed they're not actually sanctioned. So there's clear economic benefit involved with a 4G pitch. No grass to water, no seed to plant, terrace pairs and all that sort of thing. It saves several £1,000s. But as I said, they're not actually sanctioned for football. Also, trainers, football boots with metal studs and blades are not allowed on a 4G pitch. So that's the difference. So when you're told, oh yeah, please do not wear studs. When you're told don't wear studs, you know you're going to a 4G pitch. When you're told wear studs, that's a 3G pitch. So I think if I remember rightly, we were told not to wear trainers to the Yate one.
Yeah.
So that must be a 4G. And I think the one at South Bristol, we're told to wear studs.
Yeah.
So that must be a 3G.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. We have played on both. I know we've been told at one to wear studs and at one not to wear studs. So yeah, that's the difference. And yet the games themselves, I couldn't tell the difference on the surface, and I couldn't tell the difference in the games. You know, the actual surface, it didn't seem much difference. You know, there is a difference. The main difference between 3G and 4G surface, I think it says here, 3G pitches contain infill, I'm not totally certain what infill is,
no idea.
but I know that there is a difference, and apparently it does affect the banks slightly. And if I remember rightly, the 3G, the 4G one, actually the one at E8, it did see the banks more.
Yeah.
And that's the 4G one, if I remember. So perhaps it's that it doesn't banks as true as a grass pitch would.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, yeah, okay, it says not sanctioned and you shouldn't wear certain footwear because of it. But if somebody said we've got a 4G pitch available for a match, I'd be like, yeah, go for it.
I mean, and you would do, and any of the
because they're so similar, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, I think what you have to, and it is all taken into consideration, and you said the all-weathers are fantastic.
Well, I think the consideration there is, what level are we?
Yeah, exactly. And this is where, again, with and the age of your players, there's a, you know,
we're not National League, are we?
No. And if you've got, I don't know, 9-10-year-olds, and it's 2-3 degrees, it's chucking down with rain, so you wouldn't be playing on the grass, but we've got an all-weather pitch, we're going to go out and play or train on that. And you've got 9-10-year-old boys and girls out in near freezing conditions. It's raining, it's cold, it's unpleasant, and they might be just stood around freezing. How many will you put off by having them out in that weather? And so, because you've invested in the money to get it, the pressure then to use it, said you have to take that into consideration. Will you put young children off? I think once they get older, probably up to secondary school, it's not as bad. But the younger ones off, well, we've got this, we therefore have to use it. How many would you put off?
By sending them out just because we've got the situation, got out there. Yeah, potentially. But at the same time, the ground wouldn't be like on a really cold day. Part of the reason you get cold is you get cold from your feet up on a frozen ground, whereas on that surface you're not getting so cold. No. So yeah, you still be cold, but perhaps not quite as cold.
When they're young, and that is what you've just got. I still think you have to take that into.
Yes,
I agree. I was on a surface tonight that we could have trained on probably. But I called it off just because of the amount of rain that was coming down. They were going to get absolutely drenched. And it was just like... And again, you have to take it into consideration. We're 2 weeks before Christmas. Do I want them out in the cold, wet, potentially getting ill? Who'd get ill just before Christmas. So it was like, actually, I've got a surface which we can use. But you have to look at the whole thing. And again, bizarrely with the grass, it's almost taken out of your hands. That's what you can use. But if you've got a surface that the facility we had was free, so it didn't cost me. So if I'd have forked out, or the club had forked out £80-100 to hire something,
you'd feel obliged to use it.
We'd be out there.
Yeah, you'd feel obliged to use it, wouldn't you?
You'd be out there. So if you've spent £1 million on something, you're out there no matter what.
Yeah. I don't care if you're 4 years old and freezing. Get out on that pit. We paid for that. I know.
I don't think most people, but there is that natural thing.
Yeah, there's still that duty of care, isn't there? Yeah. Okay, before we move on to grass, let's come on to a slightly different sideways move in this one. Artificial injuries. So, studies have consistently shown that the risk of certain types of injuries is higher on artificial surfaces compared to natural grass. So research published in the American Journal of Sports Medicine showed that football players are significantly more likely to sustain non-contact injuries, particularly to the lower extremities on artificial surfaces. Common injuries on artificial surfaces including ACL tears, ankle sprains, and muscle strains. These injuries can be attributed to the harder surface and reduced shock absorption of artificial surfaces compared to grass. Long-term exposure to artificial fields has been linked to chronic injuries such as osteoarthritis. The repetitive stress on joints from playing on the harder surface can accelerate the wear and tear of cartilage. And a study conducted by the University of Calgary found that retired football players who spent the majority of their careers playing on artificial surfaces were more likely to suffer from chronic knee and back pain. So we're moving more towards these artificial 3G, 4G. Now I think maybe a lot of this is more American-based study, and whether they've used more Astro in a lot of their sports.
Maybe.
But the 3G, 4G is still a harder surface than grass.
And it's again, it's doesn't surprise me because it is a harder surface, and I think it will be studies and stuff. Certainly now with the female game growing in its popularity, females at present with either boots and stuff get more ACL injuries and stuff like that. In any case, potentially, if they're on these sort of surfaces as well, could that height, that it is something which is new and it's going to take a lot of studying and might be in 10, 15 years time. It wouldn't surprise me if you almost go full circle on it and it's actually that might be causing a lot too many injuries.
Well, I remember back to when I was younger, and American football kind of made the first big run in this country. It was being shown, I think, on Channel 4. And I can remember it was big, and then suddenly you were hearing about these big injuries, and they were showing them, and the players' feet were getting caught on the rubbery surfaces.
Yeah.
Now, I know that was the early days of the artificial surface, but lots of twists and turns, and they were getting their feet caught.
Yeah.
And that was because it was the artificial surface, not grass. Because when the football players were playing on the grass surfaces, the American teams who had grass, it wasn't happening on those pitches. So
I mean, technology and stuff is improving.
It's getting better.
But it is something.
Studies still show that there are more likely to get those, the lower leg non-contact injuries for those on those surfaces.
And I think the way it is with these surfaces, and like we've said from earlier, your big clubs, your Premier Leagues, and into the league and the FA, and in football as a whole, has the still preference, which everybody has to play by, is grass.
Yeah,
it's not sanctioned for top sport. I mean, and when say England go and play, I don't know, is it Macedonia or one of them, and they have to play on these 3G, 4G pitches, there's a likelihood of injuries. These are tops. Well, if it's probably the studies are probably showing for the top sportsmen, it's not quite as safe. It probably isn't. Otherwise, if you were, let's say Manchester United, rains a lot in Manchester. If a 4G or 3G surface was perfectly safe, perfectly usable, even if it cost £10 million, they would use it. They don't. No. So there has to be and the main reason for that is you'd think, well, hang on a minute, we've just spent £100 million on this player. I ain't having him go out there on that pitch and getting injured.
Well, you look at St George's Park, they've got the indoor 3G, but they don't use that for full contact. It's just training routines, simple light work. Yeah. It's not about the hard grafting stuff. That's why they've got the outside pitches for.
Yeah, they've got all the and that's what they use. That's their choice. That's because that is.
They understand there's issues.
And they've got more study results and stuff like that. There's a place for these 3G, 4Gs, definitely. It might end up having to be 7G by the time it's totally safe and totally realistic. But they serve a purpose, certainly in these current times with all the rain.
So moving on to grass and carrying on with that whole part with that injury theme. So the traction you get while playing with grass is better. The surface has enough give that it presents injuries. It's better to have like a clod of grass torn up than for the impact to go into a player's knee. And the daily wear on joints is also reduced by the cushioned and resilient layers of the grass and the soil. Grass fields provide a more forgiving surface that can reduce player fatigue. The natural cushioning effect of grass helps absorb impact, leading to less muscle soreness and fatigue after games and training sessions. Research from sports science institutions shows that players report feeling less joint pain and muscle soreness after playing on grass compared to artificial surfaces. So, I mean, grass is where it comes from, but there are still pros and cons with grass, just generally. And down here, floods. In the winter, freeze. Yeah. And obviously in the summer, dry, hard, cracked pitch. We're not supposed to play in the summer as such, but I mean, it still has its issues. So
yeah, it does.
It's the best surface, but it's not. Again, it's not perfect. But I mean, in fairness, we're arguing from the Fight Club JFC perspective. If you're playing on a well-drained pitch, you're not getting the flood. You don't play in the summer.
No.
In theory, you're not getting the hardness. So maybe the freeze is the issue. You don't play when it's frozen.
But I suppose you have the maintenance once. You've got to keep your grass.
Oh, I'll come to that next.
Yeah, and stuff like that. I still say we're lucky. I said our pitches generally
are very good.
Are pretty good.
Yes.
You can go to some grass pitches. Again, certainly council run pitches, and it's used by the general public.
Walk the dogs.
So dogs are weeing on it, dogs are pooing on it. There's all sorts on there. So there's potential things in that grass which these kids are falling over on and stuff.
With risk of disease and everything. Yeah, absolutely.
So that happens. Again, but generally a grass football pitch is by far the best surface to play football. That's what it's there for, as Mr. Clough said.
So we look at costs then. A set of full-size goals can be somewhere between... We look at full-size rather than the smaller ones because it's such a big range of things. Full-size goals can be anywhere between £1,200 and £1,800. Full-size goals on wheels, £2,500.
Yeah.
You've got your line painting, you've got your cutting. Pitch maintenance. A company, I signed a company, I think it was in Suffolk, were offering like pitch maintenance. So verti draining, £300, which is aeration of the whole pitch.
Yeah.
With fertilizer application, £300. Weed spraying, £275. Overseeding as well for £275. And then the full package, variation fee, fertilizer, weed control, £175 per month, or the full maintenance package for £350 per month. That's keeping everything in check. Now, obviously, we pay for that here, but if you're a club who aren't that, and you've got your own club, whatever, you're looking at those sort of costs to keep a full size pitch on top of paying for your full size goal. Which, if you're using it, as I said, we mentioned the previous pod where we went to a match where they wheeled one set of goals off, put another set of goals on. So you want the slightly more expensive wheeled goals. They cost more. Yeah. It's not cheap to do all of that stuff.
It's not cheap to run. I mean, it's not cheap, and
which is going to lead me on to my final bit. Actually, let's go on to my final bit of this pod. The FA in 2022-23 generated a total turnover of 481.8 million, with an operating profit of 39.4 million, and the Premier League's global and domestic commercial and broadcast revenue has gone up by 17% to 12.25 billion for the 25 to 28 seasons. Added to that is the 6.7 billion 4-year domestic deal agreed with Sky Sports and TNT Sports, which starts next season. So totaling just under 19 billion for 3 to 4 year packages. So the Premier League obviously is a different entity to the FA, but 19 billion to the Premier League, profit for 22-23 of 40 million to the FA, and clubs are looking around to be able to pay, if you're a single club, £300 to get a company to come in and maintain your £100 a month to maintain a pitch for you. What are your thoughts, Mark?
I've mentioned this, I think, on how many times. I can't imagine many other business. Well, no, you can. It's just the way of the world, isn't it? I suppose.
I mean, this is it. I mean, without getting too political, it's capitalism. It's making we're not a communist country where everyone gets everything, or a socialist country where we're a capitalist. You pay for it. If you haven't got the money, then tough.
It is, and we. But
the FA. I do feel a little bit sorry for the FA because everyone looks at the Premier League and thinks the FA have got that money. They haven't got the 19 billion. They've got 40 million, which is still a lot of money, but they've got a lot to do with that money. They've got a lot to try and feed it into.
I'm working closer a bit now with Gloucestershire and the Somerset FA, getting to know more and more the people there that are working there and do stuff there. They don't have that sort. They don't have the money. I mean,
it doesn't
fair
come
share.
down as far as the counties, does it?
No, it certainly doesn't come down as far as, and they do an amazing job on a limited budget. It is a limited budget.
Well, the counties' money comes in from the clubs through affiliations and stuff, doesn't it?
So
Yeah.
and fines and stuff that they get, and it's certainly not the leagues. The FA, I mean the FA, like you said, 40 million, and they do. But I think again they probably run on their turnover and everything is really high, but they do try to feed back as much as they can.
The obscene one is the Premier League.
Oh,
because that money is essentially, once they've taken their cut out, goes to the clubs.
The EFL isn't as, but it's, I think the EFL figures.
Well, the EFL, when I was searching this, the EFL is the fourth richest league behind the Premier League, the La Liga, and the Bundesliga.
Yeah,
and then it's the EFL.
Yeah.
And it's also like the fourth most watched league as well. So it's higher than League One, it's higher than the Portuguese,
league,
Italian. You know, the money coming in there as well. But none of this. The only, in fairness, the FA do put the money down to grassroots.
Yeah.
But we're all paying subscriptions to TNT, to Sky. Amazon no longer, because they've lost the deal. They're no longer part of the streaming service.
They got it tonight. Yeah.
You know, this is the last year of Amazon. They've lost that. But all that money you're paying out, £30-40 a week for this and £30-40 a week. It just goes to them, which goes to the clubs. It doesn't come down, trickle down to grassroots.
No, it doesn't. And I don't know. I said you'd have to almost have somebody from these clubs to say again. Just because what my boys are involved with at the moment, what Bristol City do, there is stuff that they do, which their community section of there, and every club has that, Premier League and EFL. So there is stuff there. It doesn't trickle down to probably as much as it should do, but it is there, and they do certain stuff, but it's a difficult one. As I said, I think there should be more money that comes into.
Imagine if 10% of the Premier League money was invested in the grassroots. That's $500 million a year that would be just invested into grassroots money. And they can't say that they're struggling, because that money's gone up and up and up and up, and that money comes from us watching the football. It's not like they're scrabbling around for it. Us and global people buying the rights.
You'd almost need them to say, to put it in, because we've argued. So if there were better facilities for grassroots, if there were more opportunity, if the coaching, like we've said before, was a lot cheaper, and like you said, these £3,000 goals, I don't know. Like you said, instead of 2,500, 3,000. Like I said, if they said every year they bought 1,000 sets that went round, I mean, it'd make a world of difference. It's
all the surfaces. I mean, we've discussed all these surfaces, and 3G is the surface set up for football. Now, I'm not saying that every club needs a full size one, but even if you had just a 7-a-side size or a half-size pitch, even every club had that. The money they're making, to be able to go around to all the major, even if it's just sort of major centres, and just go, okay, with this money we're going to be putting into 20, 30, 40 full size and half size and quarter size 3G pitches in for the benefits of the grassroots clubs in these areas. Because hey, we've got 19 billion over 4 years. You know what? We can afford this, and
it can. I mean, one of the best.
Gonna support grassroots.
One of the best facilities I've personally been to was, oh my God, this was 5-10 years, probably no, 10 years ago probably, was one of my boys was lucky enough to play at Birmingham City's indoor arena pitches, training area. And it had at least 3 full-size pitches in. It was indoors. There was smaller pitches. It was mainly because he was playing Birmingham and Burton, just used for that club. As far as I was aware, what I could suss out, it wasn't used for the local clubs in Birmingham could use it. It was just Birmingham City's training facilities. If you could have 3 or 4 of them in every major city, it would be used 24/7.
Yeah, subsidised or built rather than that money.
Used for clubs, grassroots club. And again, because of the way that the surface is, and again, obviously,
it doesn't require a lot of upkeep.
No. And the professional clubs, I'm sure, again, I don't know how often Birmingham used, like you said, it's the same as St George's, the indoor facility, because they're not allowed to use it. They would rather be outside for injuries and what have you, but they just use it if it's really, really bad weather, if they're, certain things like that. Well, just hire those sort of venues out to your locals, get them in there, and just have, you could have 3 or 4 in, say, in Bristol, and it would be, it wouldn't solve all the solutions. But yeah, some of the facilities at the Grassroots, it is shocking, I think, Liverpool, Man U, Tottenham, Arsenal, even what they play on their drainage surfaces, you could get, like the water that we had, say, down here at Somerdale, if that was at the Emirates Stadium, it'd all vanish and be underneath in the bloody God knows what any case. So it's, as I said, it is what it is. It's not going to change that, unfortunately. And it's down to people, grassroots, volunteers and stuff. They know that there's that appetite for the grassroots volunteers that do it. But why should we give them X, Y, Z to help? Because Joe Bloggs will be out there on a Sunday morning forking a pitch or God knows what else to make sure the little boys and girls can play football.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Thank you, Mark. Any last thoughts on pitch, on sort of surfaces, on that, or on the money?
Yeah, I do. Said the surfaces, unfortunately, the way the climate is going, will need to come in more and more. Obviously, the ideal one is grass. I do worry, like they've said about the study, certainly with more females with the injuries and stuff, whether it is ideal, the 3G, 4G, but I'm sure technology is moving at such a quick pace that eventually it will be, hopefully. And hopefully more clubs and kids can play in it. But
I think from my point of view, see, a 7-a-side pitch is roughly a quarter of a pitch.
Yeah.
They keep saying, oh well, these 3G pitches, they're like $1 million to build, but yes you can play on them, but people actually like playing on grass. Yeah. But imagine if every club was said, actually we managed to get some money, and we're going to be putting in a 7-a-side 3G pitches for as many clubs as we can for you to have a training venue. Yeah. Lots of little 7-a-side pitches put in everywhere so that clubs have got a training area, just so it's wet. It's only 7-a-side, but it's big enough for teams one after the other to go and train.
Yeah.
It's not your full-size pitch. It doesn't take up the area.
No.
But it's just somewhere so that each club has got something.
Yeah, no, it'd be good. And again,
I think that would do so much good.
How much I can say, and it could easily now go into schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
Schools is the perfect venue. There is a school in Keynsham that will be getting a 7-a-side 3G pitch.
Oh, brilliant.
By 2026.
Brilliant.
I've already secured guys that will be there for a lot of it. So you might say which school it is.
But that's brilliant. That's good news that they'll be able to get that.
But again, maybe that's the way to go for
potentially
more the government.
It can be used for more than one sport, can't it? So
it can
absolutely.
It can be maybe that's where the government and stuff could get involved. By even if it's not grassroots clubs, they put it into most schools when the schools are now, if they're investing money into upgrading the facilities, put in, instead of having school 7, that you could have maybe school games, school pitches, school 7-a-side. Like I say, certainly at primary school, they don't play bigger than 7-a-side games. So if each primary school had a 7-a-side thing, they could then say, go to your local clubs and say, right, Tuesday and Wednesday night, Fridays, do you want this pitch?
Yeah.
We'll have somebody here, it'll cost X, Y, Z. Schools would then have an income coming in.
Thursday and Friday, this other club is available. Yeah, absolutely.
So that could, But yeah, so hopefully, I said I know.
Especially if imagine if the government put a regulatory on board as well that said, hey, all TV deals
Yeah.
must put 5% of the towards the school project or whatever. You know, imagine something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's all. They said 5%, and then every school, if every school had one, because they said we're looking at it from the junior football. Well, up to, even said every primary school, because they play 7-a-side football. Every primary school had a 3.
But you say junior. I can remember playing as an adult, and the training area we had was no bigger than 7-a-side because it was big enough to train on.
And again, if you had to say a 7-a-side pitch, they do. I mean, again, a lot of schools don't do it. They could have them facilities. They could do the daily mile. You could have every class running around that pitch. So far, they're running the daily mile. So they would then you'd have an area where they could do sport outside, getting fresh air.
Not getting covered in mud.
Blah, blah, blah. For kids with sensory issues, it's the same surface, So maybe that's something the government could look at as well, is that potentially every school gets an artificial 3G, 4G, 7-a-side pitch. It'd benefit clubs, it'd benefit general health.
Yeah.
It's not your main one that you use all the time, but it's something that kids...
available all the time for everyone. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
And listeners, hope you enjoyed that one, and come back in 2 weeks' time for our next one. Till then, see you then.
Good night.
If you like this podcast, then please email us your questions, comments, random thoughts, anything you want to share with us at greengrassroots@gmail.com. You can contact Mark and Andy through X at Fry Club JFC, on Facebook via Fry Club Junior FC, and the Fry Club website is www.fryclubjfc.co.uk. You could also type out a fantastic review on Apple Podcasts or give us 5 stars on Spotify. You've been listening to a We Haven't Got a Clue What We're Doing production, produced and edited by Andy Glover.